Let's have some intellectual fun. The Supreme Court rules certain tariffs were illegally implemented. Billions collected, possibly refundable. Now imagine this. Instead of cutting refund checks back through the usual channels, Congress says, keep the money in the American economy, but use it to fund reparations for descendants of enslaved people. Pause there, because that sentence alone would detonate the internet. But let's move slowly. Foreign governments don't pay them. American importers do. Then companies pass cost along. So in reality, Americans already paid, which makes the irony even thicker. Because in a sense, Americans would be paying Americans. Now layer 2. The math. Let's say there's about $175 billion in that tariff budget. If reparations are lineage-based, meaning descendants of enslaved people in the US, we're probably talking somewhere between 35 and 45 million eligible individuals. I guess that would include me. Divide $175 billion by 79 million. You get roughly $4,500 per person. $4,500. That's not nothing. That could clear credit card debt, fund an IRA, seed a small business. But here's layer 3. Is that what's actually owed? When economists talk about closing the racial wealth gap created by slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, discriminatory lending, and federal exclusion from programs like the GI Bill, the number they cite isn't billions, it's trillions. $10 to $12 trillion. Divide that by 35 to 40 million eligible descendants, and you're talking roughly $250,000 to $300,000 per person. Now the temperature changes, because for thousands feels manageable. For hundreds of thousands, well, that feels tectonic. Layer 4, political gravity. The US government has printed trillions before. Bank bailouts, pandemic stimulus, wars, infrastructure packages. The issue has never been capacity. It's priority. Most polling shows a majority of Americans oppose direct cash reparations. Even among those who acknowledge historical injustice, support drops when dollar amounts become concrete. So likelihood, if I'm being honest, if we're being honest, very low. Not because the math is impossible, because the political coalition isn't there. Can we say layer 5? Narrative warfare. If tariff money went to reparations, critics would say you're redistributing taxpayer money. Supporters would say this is unpaid labor debt. Opponents would frame it as division. Advocates would frame it as correction. And underneath all of it is a deeper tension. Is America willing to quantify its moral debt, or does it prefer the debt to stay abstract? The tariff hypothetical is interesting not because of the 4,500. It's interesting because it exposes scale. When we talk about reparations in casual conversations, people imagine a check. When economists model it, they're talking about systemic wealth reconstruction. Those are really two different conversations. So if $170 billion appeared tomorrow and Congress redirected it, it would be symbolic, historic, explosive, but not transformative. Transformative is trillion level, and trillion level requires something this country hasn't demonstrated yet. Collective agreement that the debt is real. Until that changes, the conversation stays hypothetical. Not because the money doesn't exist, because the willingness does not.